You know, have you ever seen this happen? A new team, maybe a project, or even a whole organization kicks off with this incredible buzz, just electric
Oh
energy.
yeah, mission statements, late nights, everyone's all in.
Exactly. The vision feels totally unstoppable. But then, maybe 6 months down the line, you look around and, well, the momentum's just sort of vanished.
Quietly drained away. Volunteers drift off, the numbers flatten out.
And the founder or the leader is just standing there scratching her head like, what went wrong? Where did the rot even start?
It's a common story.
It really is. And the thing is, that collapse, it almost never starts with some huge dramatic failure. What we found digging into these sources today is this really powerful idea. It's the small things, these little unaddressed fractures.
Like what sort of fractures?
Well, things like cultural misunderstandings, maybe, or that persistent friction between team members, or even just this, creeping fear people have about speaking up.
Right, the stuff people try to sweep under the rug.
Exactly. And the sources are clear. These things don't just magically heal themselves over time. They actually compound. These tiny points of neglect, these little cracks, they can eventually bring the whole thing down.
It's that hidden cost, isn't it? The cost of delaying. And it feels like it's higher than ever now. Teams are moving so fast, often working across cultures, always under pressure.
Yeah.
Ignoring a small issue today, well, it pretty much guarantees you're going to have a big crisis on your hands tomorrow.
Absolutely. So our mission in this deep dive is basically to give you a kind of custom playbook, a shortcut, really, to getting ahead of these problems.
Proactive problem solving.
Right. We're pulling together what the source is called timeless wisdom, specifically thinking about principles of graduated accountability and blending that with really practical modern organizational tools. The goal is to help you spot and deal with friction way earlier at what the sources call the crucial seedling stage.
And that seedling idea, that metaphor, is absolutely fundamental here. It sets up the whole philosophy.
How so?
Well, think about it. Organizations, like gardens, they're places of growth, right? But that growth, it's never just an accident. It doesn't just happen. The sources really insist that if you want long-term fruitfulness, you need intentional human stewardship.
Meaning leaders have to actively tend to it.
Exactly. We have to be watering, guarding, and yes, sometimes pruning. It's active work.
So that early stage, it's not just delicate, it's actually fertile, if you know what you're doing, I guess.
Precisely. If the gardener, the leader, knows how to navigate it carefully. We need to shift our mindset a bit. Stop seeing challenges purely as threats, things that might kill the project.
Okay, so see them as what instead?
As data. Diagnostic data. Friction isn't a sign of failure, it's an indicator. It tells you where growth is most desperately needed right now. If you feel that friction, you've got to act on it.
Because otherwise.
Because like we said, conflict doesn't just work itself out, it actually compounds, like interest on debt and fear. It doesn't just fade, it grows roots. So getting in there early, decisively, that's the essential safeguard for any kind of long-term impact.
Okay, so what are these specific problems then? The silent killers. What are the weeds, as the sources call them, that tend to choke that young organization in those critical early months?
Yeah, the sources point to 4 really common ones that leaders often stumble into because they underestimate just how vital that early problem solving is.
What's the first?
The first one's pretty obvious, but still often ignored. Unaddressed relational conflict, just letting disagreements fester until they become chronic friction.
Right, avoidance.
Exactly. The second is really potent today, especially with global or diverse teams. Cultural barriers, those subtle differences that can distort communication and breed mistrust if assumptions aren't brought out into the open and clarified.
That makes sense. What else?
The third one really struck me too. It's this chill, the fear of witness,
Yeah.
or just hiddenness.
Hiddenness.
Yeah, it's that environment where people know something's wrong or they have important feedback, but they keep quiet. They're afraid of the personal blowback or maybe professional consequences if they actually speak up with courage.
Wow, that silence must be incredibly damaging.
No, it's toxic. Absolutely. And the final weed they highlight is dependency. They call it the founder ivy trap.
Founder IB.
Yeah, it's where one really strong visionary leader, maybe the founder, insists on making like 60 or 70% of all the important decisions.
Okay, I can see how that'd be a problem.
Instead of growing a strong vine, a healthy organization, they basically create this ivy that chokes the host plant. It stunts everyone else's growth, their leadership capacity, and it creates instant bottlenecks the second that founder is unavailable or just overwhelmed.
So these problems, relational, structural, cultural, usual, they can spiral pretty quickly from just personal friction into, well, systemic failure.
That's the danger.
So, okay, let's say we spot the friction. We see one of these weeds starting to grow. How do we actually move from diagnosing it to resolving it without, making things worse?
Yeah, that's the critical next step.
Let's dig into what the sources offer as the most actionable tool for the relational side, the restoration pathway.
Right. This framework is really fundamental. And it's important to grasp that while it draws on specific, timeless wisdom, you find these principles in Matthew 18, for instance. It also aligns perfectly with modern best practices for graduated conflict resolution,
Or graduated mean.
meaning it starts small and escalates only if needed. But the key emphasis here is always on restoration, not just punishment or being punitive.
Okay, so it's like a ladder, designed to start on the lowest possible rung, you said, to protect everyone's dignity.
Exactly. It's not a weapon for shaming people. It's explicitly a tool for reconciliation.
So what's step one? The lowest rung.
Step one is that crucial private conversation, just one-to-one. The sources even suggest a specific pattern for leaders to follow, designed to speak the truth in love, as they put it.
How does that sound in practice?
Well, you start by affirming the shared mission or value. Something like, hey, can we talk for a minute? I've noticed X happening, and frankly, I'm concerned because our shared goal, Y, seemed to be affected by it.
Okay, so start with common ground. Then what?
Then you clarify the impact. And this is key. Focus only on objective observation, not on guessing their motives. You might say, when X happens, what I actually observe is Z result. And that has a tangible effect on the team by, say, delaying this project or maybe creating some mistrust among our volunteers. Keep it factual.
No, you always, or you never kind of language.
Definitely not. Then you immediately invite their perspective. Help me understand what's going on from your side or what led to this situation. You have to listen genuinely here.
And the goal isn't just to vent, right?
No, the ultimate goal is to propose a repair action. The whole tone has to be restorative. You might end with something like, what specific step could help you move towards reconciliation here? How can we restore things with the team?
Okay, but wait. If the goal is restoration, isn't there a pretty big risk that, well, that the person causing the issue just denies it or brushes off that one-on-one conversation?
That's a really essential question. Because yes, that risk is definitely there. It's high, actually.
So what then?
That's precisely why the pathway is graduated. If that private one-on-one step fails, if there's denial or no change, the escalation path is clearly laid out. Step two is bringing in one or two other people, impartial, trusted individuals for small group mediation.
Okay, like witnesses or mediators?
Sort of. The goal there is objective verification, getting other eyes on the situation, and also creating a slightly stronger relational circle for accountability. More support, more clarity.
And if that doesn't work, if the small group mediation fails to bring reconciliation?
Then you move to the final step, which
Yeah.
involves bringing in broader organizational leadership. But the sources are really strong on this. This level of escalation is the medicine of last resort. It's serious.
So even when consequences are necessary?
Precisely. Even when consequences have to be enacted, and that final stage might involve firm boundaries, maybe even disassociation, in some cases the entire process, start to finish, must always aim to preserve the dignity of the individual, even while you're acting decisively to protect the health and the unity of the whole community.
That sounds like a tough balance to strike.
It is. And it really only works if you've already built a foundation of trust and you've clearly communicated norms for behavior beforehand. People need to know this is the process.
Right. So that relational framework, the Matthew 18 pathway, that helps us repair things after something flares up. But, as leaders trying to be proactive, we don't want to just wait for the fire, do we?
Ideally not, no.
How do we spot the smoke? How do we see problems before they even get to that point where you need the Matthew 18 process?
Okay. This is where we shift gears a bit into the systemic framework. It's about early detection using objective. Well, let's call them vine health indicators.
Vine health indicators. Okay, like taking the plant's temperature.
Sort of. This is a really crucial pivot. Because just addressing a surface symptom, like, say, you notice rapid turnover among your junior staff without diagnosing the actual root cause, it's basically useless in the long run.
Right, you're just treating the cough, not the pneumonia.
Exactly. It's like pruning the leaves, while the roots are actually rotting underneath the soil. You got to use data, both hard and soft data, to dig past those surface symptoms, things like gossip, maybe declining attendance at key meetings, low morale, and find the real root causes.
Which might be.
Could be anything, really. Unclear expectations, maybe the team's lost its sense of identity or purpose. Could be failures in setting boundaries, poor communication channels. Lots of possibilities.
So how do we track this stuff objectively? You mentioned a dashboard.
Yeah, the sources recommend implementing what they call a quantitative VINE dashboard, something leaders track regularly, maybe monthly or quarterly.
VINE, like the plant.
Well, it can stand for different things, but yeah, keeping the metaphor going. The dashboard needs some key metrics.
What are the must-haves?
They focus on things that indicate stability and clarity. First, track your volunteer or staff retention rate,
Yeah.
month over month, quarter over quarter. A sudden drop they flag, 15%, is an immediate high-priority red flag. Something's wrong.
Okay, 15% drop in retention. What else?
Second, look at your new member assimilation completion percentage. So not just how many new people start, but how many actually finish your onboarding program, say, within the first 3 months. If that number is low, your process for embedding commitment and culture is failing.
Huh. Why track completion rate specifically? Why not just the total number of new people joining?
Good question. Because the completion rate measures embedded stability, not just initial interest or volume. You might recruit 100 people, which looks great on paper, right?
Yeah.
But if only 10 of them actually finish the program where they learn the mission, the values, the conflict norms, well, the other 90 are basically potential structural liabilities just waiting to happen. They haven't bought in.
Got it. That makes sense. What other metrics?
Two others they emphasize are attendance variance, basically, the week-to-week percentage change in attendance at key meetings or gatherings. Big swings suggest instability, and financial stability, specifically looking at the ratio of recurring income, like regular giving or subscriptions, compared to your overall budget. Predictable income equals stability.
Okay, so those numbers give you the hard data, the skeleton. But you probably need more than just numbers, right?
Absolutely. The numbers tell you what is happening, but not always why. You need the qualitative pulse checks to give you the texture, the context.
Like what kind of checks?
These are things like quick, regular pulse surveys, asking key questions about psychological safety. Simple things like, on a scale of 1 to 5, do you feel heard? Or do you trust leadership?
And is there a threshold for those?
Yes. The sources actually set a hard early warning number. If your average score on questions like that dips below 3.2 out of 5, you need to intervene immediately. Don't wait.
Wow, that's specific. 3.2.
Below that indicates significant underlying issues brewing. Leaders should also keep careful narrative logs, just simple notes tracking recurring concerns they hear or unresolved conflicts that keep popping up. Those patterns tell a story.
Okay, so let's say a red flag goes up, retention drops, or that survey score hits 3.1. How do we use that data point to actually find the root cause you were talking about?
Right, that's where the diagnostic steps come in. The VINE framework isn't just metrics, it's an action framework. The initial steps are crucial. First, you inquire. Go talk to the people represented by that data. Listen deeply.
Okay, more.
Then narrow. You take all those anecdotes, those symptoms you heard, and you try to translate them into specific categories. Is this fundamentally a relational problem? A structural one? Is it spiritual? Or maybe a capacity issue?
Why categorize it like that?
Because the category points towards the right kind of solution. You need targeted remedies. You wouldn't apply a relational fix like bringing in mediators if the real problem is structural, like a totally broken reporting system.
I know that wouldn't work.
Right. So inquire, narrow, and then the third step is discern. This often means seeking outside perspective, maybe from a mentor, a consultant, or doing an organizational review to confirm your diagnosis before you jump to solutions. Get the root cause right first.
Inquire, narrow, discern. Okay, that seems really practical. So this brings us to, I guess, the final key idea from the sources. Building resilience isn't just about reacting well to crises.
No, it's built through rhythm. Proactive rhythm, not constant, exhausting reaction.
Right. So what are those proactive rhythms, the organizational equivalent of, like, preventative care? What do the sources say leaders need to build in?
They point to both spiritual and structural habits. Things designed to make vulnerability and honesty normal, not exceptional.
Such as?
Well, things like regular corporate confession and forgiveness. Now, organizationally, that might look like establishing a consistent rhythm of honest, protected after-action reviews.
After-action reviews.
Yeah, where teams can openly talk about what worked, what didn't, mistakes made, without fear of blame. Where saying, I messed up, or we need to change this, is actually encouraged. It builds trust and normalizes course correction. It's the polar opposite of a blame culture.
That sounds healthy.
It is. And another key piece is protecting the leaders themselves. Leadership, soul care.
What does that involve?
Things like implementing mandated sabbaticals for executives, ensuring leaders have structured support like spiritual direction or professional coaching. It's essential to prevent that founder burnout we talked about, because that burnout so often triggers the organization's collapse.
Protect the core.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned onboarding earlier.
Yes, that intentional onboarding process,
Yeah.
making absolutely sure that newcomers aren't just shown the mission statement in the coffee machine.
Right.
They need to be explicitly oriented to the values, yes, but also to the conflict norms.
Mm.
How do we handle disagreements here? What are the communication standards? Setting those expectations clearly from day one prevents so many future problems.
It seems like all these elements, the diagnostics, the pathways, the rhythms, they need to fit together.
They do. And often the best way to implement them, especially when a red flag has been identified, is through a structured, goal-oriented timeline. The courses often talk about using something like a 90-day sprint
90-day sprint to fix the culture.
to stabilize it, yeah, and clarify the mission again.
Yeah.
It provides focus and urgency.
How does a sprint like that typically break down?
It moves pretty quickly. Day 0 to maybe 20 are about triage and inquire, intense listening, digging into the data, diagnosing those root causes, really understanding the problem.
Okay, first 3 weeks or so.
Then, roughly days 21 to 45, you move into engage and restore. This is where you implement the targeted fixes you identified. You might run workshops, have structured reconciliation dialogues based on the pathway, change of process.
Taking action.
Right. And finally, days 36 to 90 are about verification and nurture. This is crucial. You check if the fixes are working, you get feedback, and you institutionalize the changes.
Meaning
Meaning you actually rewrite the job description, or you update the employee handbook with the new conflict norms, or you change the meeting structure permanently. You embed the fix so the organization doesn't just slide back into the old broken patterns after the 90 days are up.
wow, that's a really concrete approach. This whole deep dive, it feels like it fundamentally reframes what leadership or maybe stewardship is all about.
How so?
Well, tending this tender vine, it's about refusing to just leave growth to chance, isn't it? It requires this careful balance of firmness and mercy, and maybe most importantly, protecting the whole community by actually acting early when problems are still small enough to handle restoratively.
That's a great summary. And, to connect this back to that broader context of accountability and maybe grace, the source has brought up an interesting parable, the story of the barren fig tree in Luke 13.
The barren fig tree. Remind me.
Well, the vineyard owner comes looking for fruit on this tree, finds none year after year, and says, cut it down. Why should it use up the soil?
Right. Seems reasonable.
But the gardener, the one tending the vineyard, steps in. He intercedes. He says, sir, leave it alone for one more year and I'll dig around it and fertilize it. If it bears fruit next year, fine. If not, then cut it down.
So the gardener asks for more time, but not indefinite time. One more year of focused effort.
Exactly. It highlights this profound reality, both spiritually and organizationally, I think. There's grace, there's patience, there's intervention, but it's not limitless.
It's a limited grace period, defined by patient accountability.
Perfectly put. Urgent patient accountability.
Yeah.
So the thought to leave you with, maybe, is this.
Okay.
If you knew, really knew, that the grace period, that time for digging around and fertilizing the tender vine in your own team or organization, had a clear, limited duration, how would that sense of urgent yet patient accountability change the actions you take starting tomorrow?
That's a powerful question. It adds a layer of intensity, doesn't it? Don't just wait for things to get bad. Don't wait for that 3.2 on the Pulse survey.
Right.
Take the next practical step now. Maybe that's drafting the script for one specific, careful restoration agreement conversation you need to have. Or maybe it's just initiating one proactive after-action review this week. Start cultivating that courage, that stewardship right away.